When you work for 20 plus years, you get to observe a lot of different things. A lot of realizations come to mind. But in my case, the single biggest one was that I was getting old. But jokes apart, the other realizations I came to was, one, that most of us are willing to put up with boring but well-paid jobs. Don't we? Boring but well-paid jobs. That we are willing to overachieve, even at the cost of spending time with our families. That we are willing to shoot for the next promotion, even at the cost of missing out important events in the lives of our children. But the biggest one that I couldn't figure out, the realization I came to but I couldn't answer was, how is that there are times in my career that I was doing very well. I was at the top of my game. I was cruising along. I was in my zone, belting it out. But there was times when I was down here, down in the dumps, not doing very well. Now, thankfully, the number of upsides were a lot higher, a lot more than the number of downsides. But still, if I could figure out what took me down, or what I could learn what made my upsides possible. What if I could take those lessons and apply to my downsides? So one, I will have fewer of them, and two, every time I go there, I will have a way of bouncing back out of it. Won't that be awesome? It'll be great to have some lessons that you can learn and apply it to your downsides. Am I the only one that goes through downsides? I hope not. I can see heads shaking, so I know I'm not alone. So like any self-respecting human being, I went to Google and I typed in career success. What do you think I got? 80 million hits. A little one too many. I went to YouTube. I got about 4.8 million videos. And after this, it's going to be 4.8 million plus one. I went to Amazon. I got about 80,000 books. A little one too many again. So it's not the dearth of information that is the problem. See, even 20 years ago, I could have complained about the lack of information and said, because I didn't have all this information, I couldn't go ahead in my career. Because today, I'm swimming in an ocean of information, a sea of information. So there is nothing to complain about. Or is there? But even then, I still couldn't answer what took me up and what took me down. And there was no way to figure it out. But thankfully, in the last few years, I happened to meet a few people, coach a few people, and through their stories, through their eyes, I was able to see my own journey. And as a result, I was able to answer some of the questions that was bothering me. I don't know if I have all the answers yet, but I do have a few which I want to share with you today through the eyes of these three people. The first person, let's call him Adam, an engineer in the Bay Area, a smart one. One morning, Adam was called into the office of his project sponsor. Now, it's not every day the likes of Adam gets called into the office. It's a large project, $500 million project, so you don't get called into the project sponsor's office every single day. So it was with a lot of trepidation, Adam goes into the office only to find that it was not only the project sponsor, the who's who, 5 other who's who of the project were there in the conference room. So Adam knew it was time to polish his resume. After a lot of anxiety, after a lot of creating a lot of mystery, the project sponsor started to speak. He said, Adam, we are so impressed with what you've been doing. Just because of you, the technology portion of this project has been going exceedingly well, and thank you so much for what you're doing. He said, yes. It's not about my job anymore. And then he said, and to recognize your efforts, we are giving you a spot bonus of $20,000, and here is the check for it, a real story. And not only that, if you continue to do what you're doing right now, which I know you will, at the end of phase 2 and phase 3, you will have $20,000 each. So by the time this project is over, you'll be richer by $60,000. And Adam said, yes, there is my Tesla. So if you look at it from the organization's point of view, the organization did its job. It recognized the talent, right? And it motivated the talent. He was doing a good job, Adam was doing a good job, and the organization said, here's a great guy, let's break the norm. Instead of just giving an annual bonus, this guy is doing such a marvelous job, let's go recognize his efforts. So the organization fulfilled its commitment. But look at it from Adam's perspective. Adam goes home only to realize he gets recognized time and time again. He is a star performer, so he gets rewarded by all these wonderful checks, $20,000, $30,000. So money is not the issue. The issue was he just didn't know how to move ahead. He was stuck in the ladder. He was stuck in the bottom ladder. He was still an engineer. People that joined with him have now found a way to move ahead. People have become managers. They become directors. But Adam was stuck here. He was earning money nevertheless, but still stuck in the ladder. One story. The second one, I saw it through the eyes of a gentleman. Let's call him Thomas. Thomas is a senior director in a large organization working in the Bay Area. Again, I come from the Bay Area, so most of my stories are from there. Adam runs an organization that has 400 people, a very mission-critical job. Billions of dollars worth of transactions flow through Adam's organization every day. So you would normally assume, you would normally assume Thomas is a smart guy, extremely smart guy, very intelligent, capable of leading all the 400 people, which is true, he is. He is a smart guy. So one morning over coffee, we discussed about a lot of different things. At one point, we figured out Adam just wasn't clued into what was happening around him as much as he was focused on his job. Like he had blinkers on his eyes, he was focused on his job. He just didn't know what was happening in his own backyard. He just didn't know who the top 2 CEOs were. He didn't know about the competition. He didn't know about the disruption, the startups in the industry. He just didn't know any of them. And to add insult to the injury, you would believe that somebody like Thomas would be willing to lead his people, will be willing to guide their career paths. So you would expect him to know the knowledge sources like Coursera, EDX, and all that stuff. And Thomas didn't know nothing. Now, I'm not the kind of guy who expects everybody to know everything. But when you have a responsible job, when you are responsible for the lives of 400 people, you are expected to know some things. The third story is from Katie, a product engineer, now holds the title of a director. Every time a promotion came up in her group, she was overlooked for the promotion. Not once, not twice, more than 3 times. She couldn't figure out what she was not doing that would make her successful, make her get promoted, nor was her boss willing to tell her objectively what she could be doing to become promoted. So through the eyes of these 3 people, I was able to see where I went wrong every time when I went down. The consistent thread that ran across these 3 stories, across these 3 people from 3 different domains and industries, that all of them were very smart, very intelligent people, very accomplished, but they got stuck in the rut, in the bottom rung of the ladder, had no way to move up the ladder. They just couldn't figure out what is it that was stopping them from moving up the ladder. And because I had to coach them, I had to go figure out, I had to do all the research, do more interviews to figure out what was going on, what could I do better? What if I could figure out what stopped me during my downsides that could help me bounce back from it every time I went there, or have fewer of those downsides? So I came upon 3 generalizations, which explained where I went wrong, where I could have done things better. The first of which was the fact that my over-reliance on my IQ, which is the case with most people. They simply rely on their intelligence and the skills that they bring to the table to continually move ahead. So there is no doubt that your intelligence is required. See, without the intelligence, you are not going to be hired for the job in the first place. You are hired because of your intelligence. You are hired because of your skills. That is what you bring to the table. That is what the organization expects. And you continue to learn, you continue to perform, you continue to be the go-to guy for that particular seat of knowledge. Everybody looks up to you. But we tend to believe so much on our IQ, we forget about the rest of the ecosystem. IQ at its very best contributes to only about 40 or 50% of your total success value in your career. You could argue about the percentage, but not more than 40 or 50%. The rest of it comes from knowing what the political landscape looks like, knowing what the organization looks like, knowing who are the movers and shakers, building the relationships, building the network. But we tend to put all our eggs in the IQ basket. We simply forget the rest of the landscape totally. Now, I am not advocating that everybody becomes a political player. I am against political playing. But at least you have to know what the political landscape looks like, how to navigate the political landscape, even at least how to avoid the political players, at the very least. So learning the fact that IQ is not going to contribute to career success beyond 40 or 50% is the first thing that I learned. The second thing I learned is our failure to develop a complete portfolio, a fuller portfolio of knowledge. See, because we are so much into our careers, I mean, the way I describe it is when I was at the top of my game, my head was inside my keyboard. My head was buried in my keyboard. I was so heads down, working all the time. I just forgot what the industry looked like. I forgot what my ecosystem looked like. I forgot what was the startups in the space. I forgot what was the competition in the space. I forgot to keep up with the industry totally. Because all that mattered to me was the academic functional knowledge required for that job in question. There was a period of 5 years in my job where I just didn't go to any industry conferences. Why do you go to a conference? You go to a conference because you want to keep up with the updates in the industry. You want to know what is going on around you. You want to know the latest and greatest technology, the improvements that are happening, the disruptions that are happening in the industry, the innovations that are happening in the industry. For 5 years, I was so engrossed in my job, I just did not go to even one conference. It is not because my organization didn't have any money. I work for one of the richest organizations in the world. I consider myself a voracious reader. I read quite a bit, but for those 5 years, I didn't even read one book. I just got so lost in my job. The third thing I realized, all our excellence, all the goodness we think about ourselves is all locked up in our head. We live a delusional life. We sit on the ivory towers right in our head. It might be very good. But think about it. How many people do you think knew me when I was in my job at the top of my game? 30, 40, 50 people within my organization. Outside my group, I didn't exist. I'm not even talking about outside my company. Outside my group, my very own group within the company, nobody knew me. Which means all my excellence, the ivory tower was in my head. I just didn't pay attention to what was going on around me. There was no network to build. There was no brand to build. I just didn't tell people that I was capable of solving certain problems that only I could solve because of the value proposition that I bring to the table. I just didn't have a brand. Not only did I not have a brand within my company, I did not have a brand outside my company. Over-reliance on IQ. Failure to build a complete portfolio of knowledge. And living a life of seclusion. Successful seclusion. You are so successful in your job, you seclude yourself from the rest of the world. You fail to brand yourself as a person who can solve certain problems within your industry. How do you come out of that? See, most of us today, we rely on our organization's performance review process to continually evaluate how we do and what we do and how to change that, don't we? We wait for that one time during the entire year when the organization says, oh, now is the performance review time. Let's see what your goals are for the year. We rely on the organization to tell us what the goals are, and we just happen to piggyback on top of the organization, add our personal goals on top of the organization's goals to succeed. We piggyback. Instead, I am recommending that every one of us evaluate our life in clicks of 6 months. Every 6 months, figure out what we are doing, how we are doing, where are we going? Are we achieving the goals? Are we hitting the milestones that we set for ourselves? And what course corrections needed to be applied for us to continually do better in our jobs and careers? Till we do that, it could be years, it could be 5 years before you wake up one day, pull your head out of the keyboard to realize that the world has gone way past and you're still stuck. You no longer can complain about being stuck in the bottom rung of the ladder because you have forgotten to take control of your life. What cannot be measured cannot be controlled. What cannot be controlled cannot be grown. So start measuring your life in increments of 6 months. Continue to evaluate. Continue to know what you're doing and apply those course corrections as you go along. And that is how Joseph, Adam, Thomas, and Katie got out of their career rut and continued to grow. Thank you.